welcome to Backboard Banter on the board with your hosts Matt Middleton and Kevin Rayner. For the banter's as ferocious Matt McClung in the dunk contest, man. Dude, this 6'2" man can jump, eh?
White boy did it. The guy was crazy. Pulled out some pretty ridiculous dunks. And most importantly, nailed every single one on the first try. I mean, yeah, I guess he was the savior of All-Star Weekend, right? Besides him and Jose Alvarado going off absolutely mic'd up. That's about as exciting as it got, you know?
Absolutely, man. And it's crazy to think that this guy was in the G League, gets called up to the 76ers, gets signed a contract with Puma, and then wins the dunk competition. Like, what a week for that man. But just really nice to see that he kind of revitalized the dunk competition. Not that it's going to stick, because like Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon did the exact same thing to a higher degree, and we're still in this situation. So,
I mean, at least we have something close to what we got to see from the two of them, right? But yeah, I mean, the conversation right now is pretty disappointing. All-Star Weekend, nobody really cares, blah blah blah. Hey, you know what? Dame won a 3-point contest, so he's retiring from that now. He doesn't need to go back now that he's got a win. And people really got to meme the crap out of LeBron and Giannis getting to draft teams. Like, that was the most exciting part outside of that. Was not the playing, was the players just kind of joking around on All-Star Weekend.
And is it not like kind of telling that the guys who are drafting the teams made Jokic the second last pick out of all the All-Star guys? Like, that's how much impact on winning that they view that he has. And yet he's going to win his third straight MVP.
I mean, Jokic himself admitted that he knows he's not really made for the All-Star game, and kind of a funny scenario as well when he thought that he was the last pick and was like, let me just walk on over here to being picked. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario, right? Like, there's got to be some kind of revamp at this point if the NBA wants to keep interest, because kids and their attention spans, they got to look away and look at something else every 5 seconds. So we'll see how this All-Star contest evolves over the next few years.
Yeah, man. Kids' attention spans are only getting shorter. So at this point, like, they've got to do something to re-energize this game, because like, I know that like almost 200 points for each team is like kind of entertaining, but like it's just a glorified layup line, right? Like, nobody plays defense. They let you go right to the rim if you want. It's very, very few defensive plays in that game. And even though LeBron got hurt on one.
Man, it's kind of wild, and at this point, it's just a fantasy offensive showing. Raptors got to see what if Shea and Pascal were together. Tears over here, and there was some fun moments of watching Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, go back and forth, yeah. Right? But at the end of the day, it's a fantasy shoot off, and that's what they get to enjoy. Now, returning to takes over here, I am officially the true curse. LeBron, his hold over the All-Star game officially ends. Matt, I don't even know, man. What do I say to it?
Dude, I don't know what you can say. I mean, like, it was about time that he lost. Giannis did have the first overall pick and drafted very well, taking Jason Tatum, who set the All-Star game record with what, I think 55 points?
Yeah, 55. Kind of a wild number, but also it's the All-Star game. Like, that's to be expected.
Like, Anthony Davis did 52, like, just a couple years ago. I'm sure that, another guy's going to come along and do 60. When the game is 180 to 178, like,
I think
there's opportunity, okay?
and I think Donovan had 40 points or close to 40 points beside the 55. So, like, this is what we expect out of this game. But you, on the other hand, with your take last week, trying to get those W's out of those game calls, 2 out of 3, that's the percentage that we're hoping for the Raptors, at least, in the future. So,
yeah, I mean, like, that's how we're going to have to make the playoffs, man. We're going to have to win 2 of every 3 games, and it's going to be tight down the stretch, if I'm going to tell you that, man. I wish we were kind of like Washington almost, because Washington plays the play-in teams way more than we do. I think we have like 1 game left each against all of them. I don't even think we have a game against the Knicks, to be honest, actually. So, like, at least they get to control their own destiny. We're out here just like hoping Washington wins games. Like, what kind of hope is that?
It's not the place we wanted to be in this season. Raptors fans are sitting here going, we've got this little beacon of light, this little bit of hope right now of we're expecting a positive trajectory coming out of this All-Star break. But at the same time, like, we're in such a hole. We have to claw against so many of these teams. And, you know, if the conversation is true and that we do have this tough record coming up, one of the toughest records in the league coming up, like, they got to put in the work and this chemistry needs to click right away, or we're looking at a tough offseason and the front office is going to have to make some serious decisions.
Well, I think it's like kind of crazy because we theoretically have boxed ourselves into this group with the Yak deal,
Yeah.
right? With the fact that not this year's but next year's first round pick is going to the San Antonio Spurs no matter what, unless we're bottom 6 it was protected.
Yeah, I think so.
So like it's going to go there,
Yeah.
and so we need to win games. Like, we need to have a good competitive roster. We need to show some progress with Yak at the center position and, hopefully make a late season push for something. If we could, maybe win a playoff series, I don't think that we can at this point. It'd be crazy, but I think we're kind of boxed because we have to pay Yak. We traded a first round pick for him plus those seconds.
Yep.
We've got to re-sign Freddie. We've got to re-sign Gary because we can't let them go for nothing. And so I just don't know where our team really goes if we don't have a run, man. Like, we can't strip it down like we could have this year. So I'm a little nervous.
The good news about the potential of the run is that all the rumors that I'm hearing is that the boys are healthy, right? Apparently Gary and Thad are G2G. They're good to go. They're ready to play. And rumors are that OG is expected to play tonight in this Pelican game. So hopefully this means that the boys can come out healthy, can swing while staying healthy, and we get some positive traction ahead because the fact of the matter is, yes, we do have some teams that we get to face in this play-in hunt that we're going against, but when we're not facing them, we're going to go up against the cream of the crop. So the shining light out of that is, as Matt knows, we as Raptors fans notice that this team likes to play up to its competition. So as long as we can both play up and then win those games, it'll be a positive experience at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that I guess the best sign for the Raptors is that, like, we do like to try and beat the top teams in the NBA. Like, last year, our record against the top teams was like one of the best in the NBA, and then against the worst teams, it was the worst in the NBA. So it's definitely something that we like to do, and like you said, like, coming out of the All-Star break completely healthy, having OG back, having Gary Trent Jr. be ready, and then having the ability to play a team like New Orleans who isn't healthy. They still don't have Zion. They haven't been playing well as of late. They're 4-6 in their last 10. And I'm sure if you go back 30 games, it's way worse than that. Because they were at the 1 seed for a little bit there. And now they're in the play and just kind of on the 7 seed or whatever. And like, it's good to get to play a team like that who's kind of sputtering. Hopefully that'll give them some confidence because, like, we gotta win at least 3 of the 4 games this week if we want a shot at the playoffs, like, just directly at the playoffs. And even with the play-in, man, like, Chicago's right behind us. I understand that we're 28-31 and they're 26-33, but hey, man, that was like us just a couple weeks ago, right? Like, we were 7-8 games below 500 and hoping that we could make the play-in. So
the table hurts to look at right now where we stand, right? When you look at the West, there's so many teams in that fight from the range that they're in, but it's not exactly the cesspool that is the current play-in fight in the East right now. And I can call it the cesspool because we're right in the middle of it. We're in that schlop. We're fighting around, and the boys are going to have to prove themselves. They're really going to have to step up. And, looking at this week, right? Pelicans, Pistons, Cavs, Bulls. There's an opportunity to go 4-0. There's an opportunity to have that 3-1 week we want because obviously the Pelicans are struggling. We've proved that maybe the Pistons can be beat. I don't want to really talk. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it because, again, right, like, that's the situation. The fact that, okay, I will say on the topic of the Pistons, the fact that I've heard rumors of Dwayne Casey being quote unquote fired is really disrespectful. And, like, give this man another year to bring these guys up. I know that he is the young development coach, and you've got a lot of young guys, and it's not exactly working out, but Man, it's tough. But yeah, to
Bring
continue
it
on,
back to
right?
the rap, right?
That's a conversation for another day. When it happens, we will be
Elite.
talking about it, right? But the Cavaliers, a team that we've proven we can match up against and fight, even if they are one of the positive teams. And the Bulls are the Bulls. We'll talk about the Bulls a little bit later when we get into Lonzo because they're in free fall mode. I feel bad for the Bulls, man. Honestly.
Yeah, I think that we do have a really good shot at this week, and we'll talk about the Bulls in a little bit. But I just think that we need to start stacking wins. We need to start getting some positivity out of the season because, like I said, like we're boxed into this team for at least another 2 years where we can't
Yeah.
really make significant moves unless we're gonna like completely sell on Fred low because I don't think Fred's gonna get a good return this year. Like I don't think that a sign and trade deal with Fred making over $30 million a year is going to net us a high end player, or guard or even pick. So this is the roster. Masai has bet on Siakam and has put all his faith in him. So let's see if Siakam can reward him and at least get us to the second round, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just hoping for the second round.
Yeah, nobody values Fred like we value Fred because nobody can understand what he can provide to their system because like we've seen with the Rudy Gobert, right? Like when you're a certain cog in a system, when you've been part of a wheel for so long, it is really hard to transition and change. And so, yeah, we're going to overpay Fred probably because that's what it takes to keep people. And that's the face that's the face that Raptors fans should be feeling because on the one hand, yes, Fred's great. He's an important piece of why we won that 2019 championship. Him and Siakam were built up together, but at the end of the day, there's so many players that we would rather have properly running our offense at that point guard position. It's just a fact.
Look, man, we need to stop talking about the fact that Fred and Pascal were key cogs on that 2019 championship team. Yes, they were key cogs on that team.
Yeah.
But so were Kyle Lowry, Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, and Kawhi Leonard. And guess what? None of them play for us anymore, right? Marc Gasol basically retired. I think he's playing over in Spain.
He's living his best life in Spain. Okay, that's what he's doing.
Ibaka's out of the league basically at this point.
Yeah.
Can't get on the court this year. Kyle Lowry is a shell of himself and probably should be out the league. And Kawhi Leonard can't play more than 40 games in a season. So, like, this idea that, like, oh, because they were on that championship team, like, we should stick with them, they could bring us back. Like, they were the fifth and sixth most important players on that roster. I think we can, go a different route. I think we can, like, worry about Scotty a little bit more. I think we can worry about getting somebody for Scotty to develop with and play with. Because I like what we have at the wing spot. I don't like what we have at the guard spot. That's just, I like Gary Trent Jr. I like Fred VanVleet. I'm just not sold on either of them being championship level guards.
And this is what it takes, right? Like you have to love your positions, right? Like you think about that 2019 championship team and how we felt about that roster, how we felt about certain players and what they meant to those positions. And you're right, we really have moved to that point. It's kind of crazy to have watched this full developmental structure get rebuilt and retooled and put into something new. And Scotty, baby, like it's got to be Scotty. We have to make sure that we don't have a situation like what OG is in, where he's just kind of been there, been on the sideline, hasn't been the focus, hasn't been given the opportunity to blossom into who he wants to be. And when you have a talent like Scotty with what he has proven, like that can't be the story, Matt. That can't be the story that the Raptors are looking to do.
An opportunity also is massive for development, right? Like Siakam was allowed to be the second scoring option on that championship team because a guy like Kyle Lowry knew that Siakam was the better scorer at that time. You're good, man. He just knew that Siakam could get a bucket easier than he could, so he gave it up to Siakam. Even though, like, if he wanted to, he could have pulled rank. And I think that that's something that our team is having trouble with, is that, like, especially at the beginning of the year when Fred's shot was off, and we've talked about this before, man, like, he was still pulling rank. He was like, I'm still the second best scorer on this team. I'm taking the second most amount of shots. when it maybe should have gone to an OG, when it maybe should have gone to a Gary Trent Jr., a different player who wasn't having the trouble that he was. And it's something that I've harped on, I think, all season with this group is that I just don't think the chemistry's right. I don't think that Siakam and Fred VanVleet are the same type of leaders as DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry.
For
And I
sure.
think that those guys were able to take a little bit more of a step back to let those guys blossom because they knew that it was for the betterment of the team. And I think that we have two guys in Fred and Siakam who are a little too me. They're too much of a me guy and want their stats and want their bag and want their recognition. And I get that. Everybody does, right? Like everybody wants recognition. But like you also have to look out for the team, and I just don't think they do, unfortunately.
It's going to be a really interesting offseason when it comes to Fred because as much as you hate to watch an asset walk, like do we overpay him? Like the fact that I said earlier we're going to overpay him means that the conversation is there, but if you let him go and you let Scotty thrive, you let all these situations happen, it's like it's a different story. And to think about the now rather than the future, because we could talk about the future forever. It's yak season. It's the hope that Pirtle can come in. It's the hope that this new situation can mesh and we can get fresh chemistry, rock this honeymoon period into some success, and that's all we really want to see. We want to watch some positive basketball and see the boys have like the last game that we saw before the All-Star break, because that 30 points for Pirtle was hilarious that it just showed up in his hands, and we watched Fred get to be the passing guard that we know he can be. So yeah,
Yeah,
we're hoping for some good games this week and some good Raptors basketball that, as fans we deserve at this point, I think.
I think we absolutely deserve some good Raptors basketball,
Yeah.
man. But I think we've kind of killed Raptors chat this week. We've gone over and above. You want to talk about the two major injuries that came out of the All-Star game? Like LeBron's hand, Giannis's wrist. Like, dang, man, that's some big news. And Giannis's wrist could be, a couple weeks here.
Look, man, the curse showed up in full force at All-Star Weekend. The two captains taken down in the unfortunate fashion. It's going to be a big deal, right? Like later on in a little bit, we're going to talk about, our contender situation and who we think actually matters. And yes, on the one hand, we have a serious contender in the Bucks and Giannis, and it's like, as we know, that team is nothing without him. But LeBron on the other side, the Lakers don't make a push unless LeBron is healthy. So these are two injuries that are going to affect two teams that have championship aspirations, regardless of where they sit on the table.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, the fact that the Lakers are the 13th seed in the Western Conference and people are
Wild.
still talking about them like they could potentially make a run in the Western Conference playoffs is wild, man. But it's really not crazy to think. After their 2-10 start, they've been above 500. They've had a good winning percentage. I think it's like 550 or something since
Yeah.
that start. So that would put them at around the fifth seed in the Western Conference. It's not great. It's not horrible. It's still an opportunity. I think the craziest part about the Lakers is like Anthony Davis giving you anything over a B level performance is like spectacular. It's like, wow, like look at him. He's showing up like he used to. He can actually play like, Anthony Davis once did. This 29-year-old man in his prime is
Yeah.
looking good. Like this guy is under 30 and has been broken down worse than I've ever seen in the history of the game. Did LeBron like steal his youth?
Major fragile. Yeah, LeBron just has him. Hey, this is actually a clone AD. The real AD is just locked downstairs in the Staples Center, just having the life force drained out of him, man.
And
Like,
LeBron's home, man. It goes into the cryogenic
oh my
hyperbolic chamber that he has, all that youth that
God. So many crazy theories, but yeah, no, it'll be tough, man. The Lakers have a massive road to climb, and we talked about them a bunch last week. And as all things do in basketball, we'll talk about the Lakers more, but. Shall we flip to the Suns, right? With Kevin Durant coming back. Apparently, he's going to be back soon. We're excited to see it, to finally see if it's actually enough, if this Suns roster is a competitor, because I'm not ready to put them, in a true competitor situation yet, but with Kevin Durant, you can't not ignore them.
well, like I'm ready to put them there just because I think the West is so open. Like Memphis has been in a bit of a free fall. I think they're like 4-9 in their last 13 games.
Mhm.
Like Denver, I know is the number one seed and has the third best record in the NBA, but do you really trust them? Like who else is there? Like I don't trust Sacramento, the Clippers.
Right.
I don't trust Dallas. I don't trust New Orleans. Golden State is just hanging on to a play-in spot. They're fighting with OKC at this point.
This is
Like
the story of
who's
the
gonna
West.
win the West?
Yeah, that's it, right? There's so many teams that I'm not ready to be S tier contenders, but they're pushing up there, right? Like I'd say the Suns might have jumped over the Grizzlies, right? Like I think Denver is the
Oh
number
yeah.
one in my opinion, and the Suns are right there in number two. And when it comes to how will the Clippers change with things are affected, can Golden State and the Lakers bounce up the table in any way, shape, and form, right? Like that is the true question, but seeing Kevin Durant get to play with Devin Booker and CP3 is going to be something. There's going to be a game down this stretch where a poor lottery team is going to get absolutely destroyed by like 92 points from these three guys. Like it's just inevitable, honestly.
Well, I think like CP3 is gonna have like 30 assists in a game. Like, cause the thing about Kevin Durant and Devin Booker is they're both amazing catch and shoot players. Like both of
Flamethrowers.
them don't need the ball necessarily to score points, and so it's going to be ridiculous to watch CP3 just hit them with passes, and they're just gonna hit threes after three after three after
Yep.
three, and teams can't push out to the perimeter because they still got DeAndre Ayton who can collapse, the paint and make you have to play an interior style of defense. And then they've also got him on the defensive end to be an anchor. Like this roster is constructed very well in terms of like the theoretical pieces together.
Yep.
Whether those theoretical pieces fit, we'll see. And I'm assuming that they're going to. It's Kevin Durant, man.
Yeah,
Like
that's
he's pretty seamless. Pretty seamless.
you can't bet against Kevin Durant. You know, if he won his championships in a different form other than Golden State, many people would consider him closer to LeBron. Not on his tier, but closer than he currently stands, right? So
He'd be a top 10 player of all time if he had
that's
actually won championships without Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors.
yep.
Because it would also knock Steph Curry out of the top 10, right? Like he would take Steph's place theoretically.
Alternate history, man. That's the world that we love to live in. And to flip gears a little bit, right? If we want to talk about alternate history, the
Can I just
Bulls.
say one thing about it? Just one
Yeah,
thing. It's kind of
absolutely.
wild that Kevin Durant left Golden State, left Oklahoma City and joined Golden State and augmented Steph Curry's legacy to being a better player than he is. Right? Because like everybody says that
True.
Steph Curry has 4 championships. Steph Curry won without Kevin Durant before he got there and won without Kevin Durant after he left. Kevin Durant has only ever won with Steph Curry, and it elevated him there. Do you think Steph Curry beats LeBron James in any of those finals without Kevin Durant?
Well, this
I
is
don't.
this is the fun
I
conversation, right? Like if Kevin Durant
bro,
doesn't get added, they for sure split
bro.
at least one more, right? Like LeBron definitely takes two off of them for sure, easily. So I can totally see your argument where he takes all three and they don't
Well,
have the back to back for sure.
do they even make it to the finals? Right? Like, do those Houston Rockets teams get there?
Yeah.
There's so many other scenarios, and does LeBron James have 7 championships and is the ultimate GOAT?
That's the
Like
beauty of it, right? Like and that's the chaos that we live in, right? How
I
simple
don't like
little
Kevin Durant as
things.
much. He wrecked the NBA. He wrecked the true legacy of what it should be. LeBron James, the ultimate GOAT.
This is the beauty of the NBA, right? Because a true Kevin Durant fan would come over here and say, "LeBron going to Miami destroyed the league, and the decision was the worst." Like that's the beauty of it, man. It's all about where you
Yeah,
stand.
fair.
But at the end of the day, greatness is greatness, and that's the beauty of basketball. So I'll transition now because I wasn't having a fun one there. So let's talk about the Bulls. Let's talk about Alonzo because in an alternate universe, he's playing basketball. He doesn't have this injury that seemingly nobody can understand. It's so tough. And right, you think about the Pelicans
Bro.
dealing with what they deal. Imagine if Lonzo doesn't leave and you have Lonzo and Zion dealing with injuries. Like this is the chaos of it.
No, man, it's quite sad to see the fact that his career could be over.
Yeah.
Like he's what, 25, 26 years old, not even, and his whole NBA career could be done before it really even took off. And Yeah, it's a good thing that he got paid that 4 year extension because that might be the last real NBA contract that he earns.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand this whole idea that like, okay, Lonzo Ball is not worth going from a 26 win team or whatever they are now, yeah, to 26 and 33
Yeah.
to 50 wins. Like, okay, yeah, you're right. He's not worth 25 wins individually, but does he help your guard rotation? Does he make your defense
Everything.
better? Does he improve your facilitation, like your playmaking ability? Yes. Does that mean that he can then alleviate some of the pressure that is on certain guys to do things that maybe they're not great at? Maybe Zach LaVine doesn't have to defend as hard and DeMar DeRozan doesn't have to defend as much because they've got Lonzo. They don't have to facilitate as much because they've got Lonzo. It's a trickle down effect. So maybe he personally isn't worth 25 wins,
Yeah.
but his effect on the team is definitely worth an extra 15 to 20 wins just for what he does for their lineup. Like last year before his injuries, his and Alex Caruso's, they were being talked about as the juggernaut of the league.
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan was Michael Jordan 2.0 reincarnated. And like they fell apart without him. So I think he does have a massive impact on that team, and it sucks. It sucks that he's going to be this injured and maybe potentially gone from the league.
We can't forget that he plays a floor general position, and their job is to raise the floor of their team, right? And so you can't maybe say that Lonzo is a ceiling raiser of a team, in some things, but we can for sure say that they would be absolutely way better than they would be now. And, we discussed it a lot last year on this pod because I was a big fan of what the Bulls were doing last year before the injury. Obviously, we are big DeRozan fans over here, and we talked about how it was tough for them to even have an opportunity to go into the playoffs playing Lonzo Ball style because it doesn't work that way. You have to create chemistry, especially when you're a main ball handler. And as much as it sucks that he's done for the season, like the Bulls might have to move on. They might have to figure out their next steps because they have fallen flat without him. So I hope that the guy gets to play again, right? I hope this isn't a career ending, that something is figured out when it comes to it. But he's been apparently everywhere. He's been all across the states, and like they can't figure out anything. They have no idea what this injury is.
Yeah, man, it's scary. He was, quite injury prone already.
Yep.
He's one of those guys that had broken down throughout his career already, at such a young age, and this is just like the latest in that stint, and it could be the one that ends it. If I'm Charlotte and I have LaMelo, I am so nervous because he is my franchise. He is what I'm building around at this point, right? I'm wearing the Charlotte colors right now. He's their team, and if he goes the way of Lonzo, that could be really devastating for that franchise.
And
their good years are going to get demolished before they even start, man.
And I mean, like, Lonzo, the Ball family itself is a pretty crazy family. Lonzo's pretty contained. LaMelo, like, I don't know if you've seen the videos, man, but when he leaves in his car, like, this guy's going to get into an accident with the way that he drives sometimes. So if his body's fragile enough, just wait till a big thing of steel goes, because he is not safe when it comes to driving. So
just call an car accident for LaMelo Ball ending his career. If it happens, you heard it here first. Kevin is almighty.
Go watch the videos of this man leaving. The guy
off.
is insane. He has no regard for safety when it comes to driving. But
what happens when you're a 15-year-old superstar and you can do no wrong and you get millions of dollars immediately, right? Like, it takes a very special type of person to dedicate themselves and still be humble when you have all that kind of money. That's why I'm super impressed with LeBron James Jr., man. Like, this kid, for somebody who like is instantly a billionaire, like whatever he wants to do, he's going to make money. Like, he put in the effort, he's worked his butt off, and now he's an actual top NBA recruit and like an actual maybe potentially lottery pick. So like, very rare do you get that case though. And the way LeVar raised his kids versus the way LeBron raised his kids, I'm not going to say it, but we all know
that's the story, right? Like, and it's such it's always so interesting to see the trajectories of where it can possibly go, right? And if I flip now to the situation with the Hawks, right? Like Trey Young is a young player in the peak points of his career where he is climbing in this league, and Nate McMillan and him did not get along. And regardless of what I know about this and what I don't know about this, like Nate could have been toxic to that locker room, and it could be more than just the Trey Young situation, but Trey Young knows that this parts of his career matters, and obviously that coaching situation wasn't working out. So if he forced him out, still kind of crazy, but also obviously the man had lost that locker room.
Yeah, and I think that it also speaks to like Trey Young as a person, and I don't think that he takes criticism that well. Obviously, I don't know him,
Mm-hmm.
but just from what I'm seeing, he likes to be the antagonist. Like he loves going to New York, right? Because he is the antagonist.
Oh yeah.
And I think that maybe if Nate was holding him to the same standard that he was holding to the rest of the team, maybe Trey didn't really like that because Trey Young is the team, right? So that could have been it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Atlanta, and I think obviously Quinn Snyder is the one they're looking at for the job as the only legitimate head coaching candidate out there who's had previous experience. I don't know if he's gonna turn this roster into a powerhouse either. I think this roster confuses me. The front office confuses me. The way that they handled their team confuses me. But I mean, such is for a team that traded away Luka Doncic. Like, come on,
Look, we don't
come
really know
on.
what's going on with Atlanta. There's only one consistency when it comes to that organization, and that's that John Collins is not getting traded at the trade
Even though
deadline.
he's in the trade room,
Every year, every time. Like, yeah,
bro,
the Hawks
every year,
are
every day.
every single opportunity. You pick up the phone, you call the Hawks. Guess what they go? Oh, would you like to talk to John Collins? No, exactly. Anyways, the Hawks have to figure out their situation, and it would be really interesting to see Quinn Snyder join this team. Obviously, my dream was for Quinn Snyder to take over for the Spurs, but with the Spurs tankathon and Wembanyama, obviously Popovich is never retiring because if you can get Wembanyama, like, I mean, they'll roll Popovich out in a wheelchair and just let him be there because Wemby's gonna do well for that team. So, yeah, Hawks team. I don't know what's going on in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's whatever, man. It's kind of good that they fired their head coach midway through the season. Um, it's kind of not great for the Raptors because there is that like new coach bump, right? Like there's always a little bit of a bump.
Yeah,
Guys are uncertain about their jobs. They're playing a little bit harder. Rosters are like potentially up for turnover. So like it's a bad thing for the Raps because we're chasing the Atlanta Hawks, but
yeah.
maybe the new coach doesn't know what to do and absolutely destroys the roster. Hopefully that's the case.
The way I hear it, there's the best time to fire a coach when it's not working out is the off season. The second best time is right now. So that's the decision that they made, and so here we are. And to flip to the other side in a positive coaching situation, the Nets have extended Jacques Vaughn. We've moved past Steve Nash. Steve Nash, who we're into the next iteration of Brooklyn. Considering the debacle that they had to go through, when you think about what they gave up for James Harden, when you think about the big three situation, they've got a coach now on a multi-year contract with some young guys and a decent amount of draft picks. I think the Nets are doing okay right now.
Absolutely. I think hiring Jacques Vaughn was such a smart decision. They probably should have done it originally over Steve Nash. Um,
Yeah.
Now the Nets as a franchise have done horrible, horrible things to themselves. From when they traded all those picks for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to now, destroying that locker room and that culture that they had, built so carefully, so painstakingly over the years with no top draft picks, to get a guy like Jared Allen at 24 or whatever they got him at, to get D'Angelo Russell from the Lakers and have him be an all-star, like Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, the fact that they blew up that roster and now kind of have ended up with a very similar type of roster to that is just sad. They had 3 first ballot Hall of Famers potentially on their roster, and now they have Ben Simmons, who might be like the worst player on that team.
Ben Simmons might be the worst contract in the NBA, and that I don't even think is debatable at this point, considering what's left. Yeah, but the Nets, man, if you remove Ben Simmons from the equation, everything's going good for Nets fans. When you think about how poorly it could have turned out, considering their track record.
Man, I'm so glad we never traded Siakam for him.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about a player that the Raptors almost traded for forever ago in Westbrook, who has decided to well, I mean, he hasn't jumped ship, but the Jazz have bought him out, and the good news is Westbrook doesn't have to sell his house. His kids don't have to change schools. He just has to take all of his stuff from one side of the arena to the other side of the arena. Because he joined the Clippers, man. We were talking about it last week. I mentioned it. Whether or not this works out, I still like it for the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I didn't really think the Clippers were like a major threat because, again, unless Kawhi Leonard's going to be healthy and play all postseason, which I don't think he can. The postseason is way more grueling than the regular season. There are way
Yep.
more there are way fewer off days and way fewer like days off between games. I don't see them doing that well. I understand it. They need a point guard. He's going to come off the bench, hopefully. If he starts, they're really doing something wrong. But yeah, like he fits. He can give them good, he can be a team's offense when they're both sitting, which is nice. I just feel so bad for Westbrook, man.
I know.
He's my guy.
It's tough, and for me, the hope is, this team has really evolved from that team that had a really good bench, had a really solid, collection of players, to now when Kawhi and Paul aren't playing, they just fall flat, right? And Westbrook is hopefully that player that can come in and create a little juice, create a little magic, right? And for me, the biggest thing is the storyline, right? Like, what it would mean for these three guys to win this championship, the first championship for the Clippers, right? For Kawhi to come back into the conversation to stay healthy, for Paul George to finally win something, especially in LA as an LA guy. And it's the exact same situation for Westbrook, right? So I'm really excited to see how that storyline's gonna work out. Oh, Matt is slowly coming back here. I'm now Matt. He's now me. But when it comes to the Clippers, he is back. Okay, and now, to finish my thought, which is super easy, like I just want to see that storyline work out for the three of them. I don't think it's going to because it is the Clippers' curse. It is the situation, and Westbrook is either going to work out extremely well or it's just going to be another disaster. And LeBron is sitting over there just watching, waiting to see what happens.
Well, I just feel like the Lakers just tried this experiment and like it didn't work. So
yeah, true.
Personally, if I'm the Clippers, like, why do I think it's going to work with us? Who knows? But yeah, like it is nice that Kawhi and Paul George are definitely like professional pull-up jump shooters. Like that's why they're in the NBA. That's what their bread and butter is. That's why they're superstars, right? Because they're two of the best, if not the best, in the league at just getting to a spot, pulling up, and hitting that jump shot. So that's going to at least allow Russell Westbrook to be on the floor a little bit more because they can not guard him and they can still have a decent effective offense, right? With those two guys on the floor.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Lakers, Anthony Davis and LeBron James aren't really guys that you want, pulling up. You want them either with a head of steam at the rim or a wide open three.
Yeah.
So when you got Westbrook, it's easier to guard those plays. And so, yeah, I think his fit is better with the Clippers. Are we trying to win championships or are we trying to make Russell Westbrook happy? Because, like, I love Russell Westbrook, and he will forever be, one of my top favorite players to have ever watched. This man in his prime is the best.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, at the point that he is at now in his career, like, because he's not a good decision maker, because he's not a good spot-up shooter, because I think there's a stat out there that he's the worst three-point shooter when it comes to like open looks. Like he only hits 31% of his wide open looks.
Yeah.
Which is just like pathetic for the NBA, right? Like these guys should be automatic when the guy's not within 6 feet from them. So yeah, man, I don't want to kick a dead horse, but
at least
I am.
He's an easy free bet, right? Because like if it doesn't work out, he doesn't have a contract that they're trying to trade away, right? Mm-hmm. So they can just bench him down, sit him down, make him not play. So we'll watch the story of Westbrook. The sadder story for me is Kevin Love. He's going to Miami, going from a potential winning team to a not so winning team. I joked about it last week, the irony of Kevin Love finally getting moved. GG, man. Poor guy. It is what it is, right?
Hey man, at least he's getting out of Cleveland. He's going to Miami. He's gonna hang out on the beach. I'm surprised he didn't go to LA to hang out with LeBron and the Cali
Man,
beaches. But hey, Jimmy
seriously.
Butler and those Miami beaches are just as good.
Oh, amen. So, what else you got, Matt? You want to talk about some more contenders? I think we went through a lot of the contenders at this point. Besides, I
Yeah.
mean, we talked about the West a lot. We didn't really bring up the East too much this week.
Well, yeah, I think like the East is pretty standard now that Brooklyn's kind of imploded. Like you've got the three teams that are clearly the class of the conference in Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. Cleveland is the next tier, and I think they're kind of in a tier almost unto themselves.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the rest of the slog, which is like from the Knicks, Brooklyn down to Chicago Bulls, Indiana Pacers, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we're included in that mix, Atlanta. So it's a weird year, and I think that that's kind of what the play-in has done, is made more teams more competitive and less willing to throw away assets at the trade deadline
Yeah.
for the fact they could still make the playoffs, right? And some franchises like a Minnesota, like a Utah, like the small market teams, just making the playoffs is like pretty good and like generates extra revenue that they don't necessarily get all the time. So it's a weird one. Again, the Lakers are in 13th, and people are talking about them potentially going on a run and upending the Denver Nuggets in the first round. So
I mean, hey, if
what
Pat
are we
Bev
talking
has
about?
if Pat Bev has his way, play-in champion Pat Bev, who maybe the Chicago Bulls have something on here. Maybe they're going to try to win the play-in over
Bro.
here, right? But
Bro.
like, it's a wild time in the NBA. We've been sitting here without games for a week. The All-Star game did not satisfy us, so we're really looking forward tonight. There's a lot of games. I did not realize how many games we've got going on this week. Matt, anything else you got, or
Bro.
shall we roll into our takes?
No, we can roll into the takes because I'm just going to tell you about all these awesome games tonight, right? Like, so we've got 9 games. I'm going to predict all 9. I'm trying to get my record up here. I was two for 3. So if I can go like 6 for 9, I'm still on that pace. But I'm hoping to go for 9 for 9 here.
Man's trying to ride his football high, keep that good magic going while it's still
Yeah,
around.
yeah. Keep the magic alive as any way I can, man. So I'm going to take Sacramento over Portland tonight.
Good choice. Good
I think
choice.
that's an easy one. I think Oklahoma City over Utah is going to be a tight game, but I think OKC and Utah's kind of in free fall now. OKC's pushing for that playoff.
You bet
So I
on
think
Shea.
they got that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dallas over San Antonio is way too easy. Even though Luka and Kyrie have not won a game together, San Antonio's bad.
This is a gift for the two of them. Like, you need to win this game. San Antonio's on a 14-game losing streak. Like, do not have this end that, please.
Can you imagine if they
Oh
ended
my
it?
god.
I'll take Denver over Cleveland. Even though
Good
Cleveland
game.
might need it a little bit more, that's a really good game.
Yeah.
But I'll take Denver. I'll take Detroit over Orlando. I'll take Boston over Indiana because that's probably super obvious. I'll take the Lakers over Golden State because I think the Lakers really need this. I think LeBron's sending a message that he really needs to win out the rest of the season at least.
23 of the most important games of his career from LeBron's
Regular
mouth.
season games of his career,
Yeah.
the most important. So we'll see. And then I got our Raps over the Pelicans, man. I'm hoping that this one's the lock of the week, but knowing me, I
Man.
probably just cursed us.
Hey, you know what? I think I used up a lot of curse juice in the past 2 weeks. So hopefully he's over there taking a little Topor break. It snowed like, I just smacked this. My apologies. It snowed like 20 feet out here. So, hopefully the curse is taking a nap in the snow pile. I've shoveled my driveway like 6 times, bro. In the past 2 days, it hurts. My arms are tired. But, to talk about my takes, to flip it, I'm feeling jazzed up. I was talking about how excited I was for the Kings to be, a top 4 team at this point in time. And the West is so chaotic that I'm going to talk about this Kings team winning 4 playoff games, whether that's, a play-in game or 2 and then 2 wins before losing, or it's a playoff series. I'm really hoping that it's going to be a playoff series. And I want to see the beam, man. It just would be so good, so good for
You know, man,
Sacramento.
I like the take those 4 playoff wins because that gives you the leeway to have them drop into the play-in. I don't see them dropping into the play-in though.
Right?
And then, like, sorry, man, you taking the Kings over the Clippers? Probably not. You taking the Kings over the Suns? Probably not.
This is the
You taking the
fear.
Kings over the Mavericks? Probably not. Or you taking the Kings over Memphis and Denver?
Yeah, I know, right?
Probably not.
This is why I've left. This is why I've left myself. So I've left myself some room to grow. So hopefully they will fall. They'll get
Bruh.
those 2 wins in the play-in. Then they can look. It's a tough time in Sacramento. I just want to keep the hope going. You know, we're riding this train high. We only get to see the beam get lit so many more times the rest of this season because eventually it's gonna stop. You know, this train of a season has been amazing, and I don't want to give up on it just yet, man. I just can't.
Bro, I love how 32 and 25, 7 games above 500 is amazing. Like, oh, this is the best season in Kings history. Best season in Kings history in the last 20 years.
This is what happens when you. This is what happens when you've been in the playoffs for 16 years. You know, you'll take the best scraps that you can get, man. But honestly, I'm just excited. We got some good games coming up this week. We're really gonna get to see how the league is gonna turn out. You know, there's only so many games left. We're creeping ever closer to the playoffs, my friend.
Absolutely, man. And I'm excited about it. It's going to be a great finish to the season and a great playoff round. So, all right, man, I think you're good to wrap us up.
Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Board Sports. Like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up, and check out theboardsports.net for new episodes and blog posts.
And we'll talk to you next time.